welcome all to this meeting of the Estates Committee on the 4th of November. We don't have any representatives from interested parties as such. However, we do have an observer who you will all know, hopefully, on the basis that Alison is wanting to observe an Estates Committee meeting in order to inform her whether or not she should join this or maybe other committees. So be on your best behaviour, everybody. We also, I think it's appropriate to welcome two new members to this committee, James and Owen, who again, as newbies, will probably be wondering what the hell's going on. But hopefully, by the end of the evening, they'll have a better idea. So, and in fact, the first item on our agenda is very relevant to welcoming Owen and James, which is the item EM 25101 to review the terms and references to recommendations of the next full council. We've been asked to approve further amendments to the tour. You will all have hopefully got this in your pack. And in a sense, the key amendment, well, there are various amendments, but one of the key amendments is that in the first sentence we have added or a subsequent full council meeting, which allows us to elect James and Owen and potentially others to this committee. And you'll also see that we've added some clarification around the bullet point to agree works to properties up to a limit permitted within the financial regulations. If you remember before, we had a figure of 7,500 that we'd upped it, but the wording is to ensure that it's in line with that. And you'll see that the 7.5 figure sum is also mentioned there as well. The other things in yellow, as you can see, are things which were previously agreed. So I'm essentially putting these new terms of reference to the committee. John?
There's an amendment I made last time, which is still not included, and the bullet that you're recommending, the fourth bullet point, to agree to works to properties, the second sentence makes no sense. Because the first sentence says up to a limit permitted within the FinRegs, and then request for out of budget expenditure for costs over £7,500. I don't think we should be saying or for costs over £7,500, because in the sentence before it says the limit is permitted within the financial regulations. So I think that second sentence should read request for out of budget expenditure must be referred to full council. The words or for costs over £7,500 have no relevance at all. If it's permitted within the FinRegs, what relevance does £7,500 have? Because that was the figure in FinRegs we talked about last time.
So take that bit out.
Well, that's my suggestion, because it makes no sense to me.
James, and then...
Can I support that suggestion, but even go further? Because I think that the sentence itself positively agrees works up to a limit within budget and within the limits of financial regulations. The entirety of the second sentence is the reverse of that.
Yeah.
So where it's outside of budget or over. So I think the entirety of the second sentence is actually redundant, not just the £7,500 bit. And I think it just makes it easier.
Yeah, I'm fine with
let's just take it in.
Is there a benefit in having the 7.5 mentioned somewhere in the document?
It's mentioned in FinRegs, that's what I said, FinRegs.
To avoid having the two documents.
Well, we know what it is. The problem that's identified last time is we put 7.5. What if we increase FinRegs and don't forget to increase this? Keep it smooth.
So,
That's my second point, sorry. The one that the request I made for change, which hasn't been done, is both the penultimate and the ultimate bullet point. It says by the October of every year, so that should be by the end of October of every year. Because by the October makes no, is it the 1st of October, the 31st of October? Are there 31 days in October? There are. So that should be by the end of October every year, not by the October of every year. The penultimate and the ultimate bullet points.
right, so I'm just trying to see where that is.
By the October.
Oh, yeah.
By the October of every year. Makes no sense. By the end of, the beginning of, the middle of,
Yeah.
before the end of, after the end of, by the essence of October.
Well, and
The essence of
also,
October.
we did move it to November as well.
Yes, I think we did. I was just
Well,
sitting
by the beginning
thinking
of
that
November or by the middle of November.
it's the same thing if you put the end of October.
What we should, well, okay, let's deal with the timing first. I think it's probably best to say by the October-November meeting.
I said before, it needs to be, we're going to get into that in detail. It needs to be the week before Financial and General Purposes Committee meeting in November, so the F&GP can look at the budget properly. So that's tonight. So that's next week. It would have to be done by tonight.
Yes,
So if you want to get the timing exactly, say by the November Estates meeting every year.
yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. So by the November Estates meeting. So that's the clarification on that. Do you want to just go back over your proposal? Sorry, right, James?
Sorry, if the purpose of producing 5-year plan out of estates is for it to go to the F&GP in November for the F&GP to try and produce a full budget for the entirety of the council, giving the estate's budget today to F&GP doesn't give them time to
Okay, so then let's go back. It's just that it was changed this year for pragmatic reasons. But in terms of the terms of reference, then we should say maybe by the October Estates meeting, not the November one. Would you be happy with that?
I just think you're making it too difficult for yourself. I'd just say by the end of October. You can discuss it in October, we can discuss it in October, and then make any changes to go to that are discussed tonight.
Yeah.
Before the end of October.
Because we can't change anything we decide.
You can.
Really?
You can. If the budget that comes forward says I can spend £200,000 on repairs to the courthouse, and in this meeting we say you can have £2,000, that budget is not going to get changed by us in this meeting, it will get changed subsequently by the court.
Yeah.
So the changes need to be made by the end of October.
Yeah. So by the, right, so in terms of the periodicity, so by the end of October, okay, let's do that. And then going back to your previous suggestion, do you just want to maybe specify with James's comments so that we can then vote on it and Lisa gets the wording right?
If James wanted to propose that we delete the second sentence in its entirety, I'd go with that. That's fine, second the proposal. I will second it.
Right.
Because the indication is you can't make any out-of-budget expenditure, so that's really stating a truism, there's no point in it. So I would sort of second that.
Did you catch that, Lisa?
Yeah.
So with those suggested and proposed amendments, are we now happy to vote on this? Yes?
Do we have to vote on the amendment first? And presuming that that then gets accepted, you vote on accepting the TOR as amended?
Well, I don't think we
can do
but we're amending the whole document. Yeah. So amending along the lines that have just been proposed with those proposals, are we now happy to accept it?
Yeah.
John? Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
He was
Okay,
seconded, wasn't he?
right.
It's been proposed and seconded.
yeah, good. Right, that was the easy one. So let's move on to apologies for absence, and there are none, which is almost the first, I think, as far as I'm concerned. Then we go on to declarations of interest. You're all familiar with these. To declare any disposable pecuniary interest and to declare any other interests. Anybody want to declare anything? Let's take John first.
You have to declare.
Well, I'm going to come back to me. Yeah.
I work for Amble School, they mentioned later.
Yeah. There is an item on the agenda which involves Creative Oundle, and I'm a trustee of Creative Oundle, and therefore, which is that the one you're alluding to? Yeah. That I should declare that, and Ian's declared his employment by Oundle School. Okay, thank you very much for those. Representations from interested parties, there are none. So that moves us on to minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 7th of October. Are we happy to sign those or to approve them as a correct record of the meeting? I realise that basically it was me, Ian and John who were here, so are the three of us happy with those? In which case, do we need to formally, Ian's proposing them, John's seconding them, all in favour? Thank you very much. I will happily sign those for you now. The minutes seem to get longer every meeting.
You said,
It's the, whatever it is today, 4th. Therefore, for you to be said later on. Okay. Let's move on to our reports section, EM 25106. These are all to be received. We don't necessarily need to discuss them, and they are a standing set of items. The properties report, which we will look at in more detail as things go on. The I&E report on properties, the spreadsheet that's been circulated, and the other spreadsheet, the 3 to 5 year maintenance action plan, which is a working document. I'll say a little bit about that. I have been trying to transfer all of the details from that 3 to 5 year action plan into possibly a little more of a user-friendly spreadsheet, which hopefully I will have completed by next month, which we then might be able to use as a check on what the maintenance team in particular have been doing in relation to estates and what's coming up and so on and so forth. So look out for that next month. So we're happy that we have received all of those.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
If I look down the I&E, there are a number of expenditures which are way above the annual budget, and we're only 6 months in. I don't know whether any of those come to full council for approval. So, for example,
Let me just, I had it here when my thing just closed down. Yeah, carry on, John.
For example, environment community, £7,000 spent against a £1,000 budget. Maintenance, 836% of the annual budget has been spent on equipment. 230% of the annual budget has been spent on the van. I don't remember any of these coming to council. So I'm just wondering how the Estates Committee manages the budgets. I'm part of the Estates Committee, so I'm as responsible as anybody else. That's question one. And question two, just as an observation, we talked about at the finance meeting that James was at, anybody else here was at, when I talked about, rather than giving an individual repairs budget and an individual maintenance budget for every single property you've got, whether it would make more sense, and I'm welcoming opinions before I put this forward proposal to FGP. Rather than have individual repairs and maintenance budgets for each property, we have a global repairs budget and a global maintenance budget, such that estates can manage what's being spent on each property within that global sum, and not have to come back, as you should have done. If you wander down that, you're in increment mode. If you wander down the detail, I think if you wander down the detail, stop there, DH car park, Trillwall car park, annual budget £500, spent 750. I think that did go to council, so I haven't mentioned it. If you scroll down a little further, JSC, RM, Jones Strong Centre, we spent £3,000 against a £1,500 budget.
Yeah.
Was that approved by council? I don't remember.
That was the problem with the drain, wasn't it, when that person fell over, so yeah, that did come. But I've mentioned this before, because that very first figure there that you pulled up on last meeting, John, 16k budget for Fletton House, but we've spent 83,494. And you were like, well, how much of that 16 R&M have we spent? So something was sent to full council, wasn't it? So that will need Paul to break down and separate the figures, because certain figures are put in there and they are misleading because it's about something else.
So we can't fix the thing this year without going through an awful lot of work. So I want I suppose to note 2 points. One, if we are going to overspend budget, we should be sending it to full council. But more importantly, for next year, what's people's views about saying there's a repair budget? We can say what we think each property should have, but rather than having to go back to council, which we ought to, in theory, to say, we've overspent on this budget, we're well underspent on this budget, can I transfer some of that budget, or can I overspend a budget? Rather than do that, it would make much more sense to say to the clerk and to the deputy clerk, here's an overall budget, manage it, without having to come back to council every time.
Yeah, and it's a general issue about how we manage spend against budget, and we're obviously going to come on to that in the next agenda item anyway. With regards to the car parking, I think there's a bit of an oddity anyway, because I think there's a special budget, is there not, for car parking?
It certainly was, yes.
And so it may be that it's been allocated to an incorrect budget code.
And some of the works from last year
Yeah.
carry over into this year.
The other issue is that there will always be, and again, this will become clear, and it's what I've been working hard to try and resolve moving forward. If you take the Jones Strong, we normally spend very little on Jones Strong, literally in 200 to 300 a year, if that. But there will always be a rainy day, and there's been a rainy day this year. In fact, actually, there's going to be a huge rainy day next year, potentially, where the way we've traditionally set budgets is that we don't allocate enough to what you might call exceptional outliers, and these outliers will come along. What we have to do in our planning is to try and work out what those are, and that's a fairly good segment into the next agenda item, when I'm going to hopefully say something about the work that I've been doing, where we can hopefully decide next steps, because the two, I think, are interrelated.
Completely agree, but at the moment, I don't see any overall control on the repairs budget. I see massive overspends in some areas, massive underspends in other areas, but I don't see anywhere a report from Lisa or from the spreadsheet which says our overall repair spend is okay, or it's not okay. And council, other members of the council who are not here, have got no idea how much we're spending or overspending. They should. So again, I'm not going to necessarily want to fix this year, but I think we should be fixing it for next year because we shouldn't be overspending. We've got a limit now of £7,500. Last year the limit was £3,000, but we were spending regularly more than £3,000.
But is it not a case that a digest of this goes to full council anyway? So it's not that they're unaware of it.
You would hope that people would it. But I don't know how many people look at the repairs budget and go through and add up all the repairs to say, this is how much we spent, that's how much we budgeted. That's why we get overspends.
Let's take James.
But it's not a point about whether people are aware. It's that our financial regulations actually state that we are not permitted to. So it's not, oh, well, we've done it anyway and everybody else should be aware of it. But to come back to John's point about how you then fix it, do we not look to the clerk and the deputy clerk to actually enforce our regulations upon us? And where we are sitting here considering something that we have specifically precluded ourselves from doing.
You're absolutely
Our
right.
trusted advisor should be saying, be aware, everybody.
But I don't think we have done anything in this committee that is outside financial regulations. So if you take the Jones Strong expenditure, which was to do with the gully repairs that were needed, that did go to full council.
Yeah, but John's question is about the 710% on environment community.
Did that go to full council?
So
If it did, great.
£1,000 worth of spend on £1,000 budget. Which does seem.
But things which are outside our budget are always recommended to full council.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that was simply what John's question was.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure what the issue is. And as I said, what I'm trying to say is that this is not a failure of this committee, it's a failure of full council, if anything.
I think the point I'm making is you've got individual budgets there which have been overspent. Have they all gone to council? If they have, great. I'm not convinced they have. But it leads into my overall thing, which is I want to put a proposal forward saying let's have one repairs budget rather than individual budgets that we're overspending with individual budgets that we're underspending, and give it to those people to Lisa and to Emma to manage within that figure so they keep us honest.
Yeah.
I think the level 4 summary document has a lot of the oversight that you're after and where the money's gone, etc. Most of those decisions have gone to full council, even if back in April, May, June last year, didn't place over the summer. So the payment date is now, but they were approved previously, like the roof work and solar panels on here.
Okay, great. So if we're doing that and we're spending last year's money which was put into reserves, I'm quite sure whether we should have a separate line which says accruals spent, or whether we should have that budget increased to reflect the brought forward budget. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely, but we don't produce the spreadsheet, so yeah.
That's a conversation with Paul.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a good observation, but I don't think it's anything that we can actually fix in this particular meeting.
No, that's my point. We can't fix it.
Okay.
We think about fixing it for next year by having one budget for repairs, which is very sufficient.
And in a sense, it's a conversation that's needed with the clerk and Paul as much as anything else. In which case, then I think I'm going to move on to agenda item 10604, which is to receive and give initial observations on this blessed spreadsheet, which has been talked about for certainly the last 2 council meetings. I don't know, can you hook up this computer to something or not?
Yeah, I can unplug myself and you plug in.
Sorry?
I can unplug myself and you can plug in if you want.
Yeah, it's a question of whether that we have